You're safe now. I've got you.
Mama! Mama! Mama!
A young Apache mother was cast out, left alone with two small children and nowhere to go. Every door in the town closed on her, and every hand turned away in fear. Just when survival seemed impossible, a lone cowboy made a choice no one else dared to make. He stepped forward and offered them shelter, food, and safety under his roof. But what he didn't know was that helping them would pull him into a conflict that could change his life forever. The town of Red Creek was small, dry, and quiet in a way that made every stranger stand out. People knew each other well, and anything unfamiliar was treated with suspicion rather than curiosity. That morning, a young Apache mother stood at the edge of town with two children beside her. Her name was Nijoni. Her clothes were worn from travel, and dust covered her shoes from many days on the road. Her children stayed close to her, watching everything with tired eyes. The boy held a small cloth bundle. The girl clung to her mother's hand and looked at the town as if it might turn against her at any moment. Nijoni had come looking for work or shelter. Her home had been lost weeks earlier, and she had been moving from place to place since then. She believed she might find help here, even if it was only for a short time. But no one in Red Creek offered her a chance. The shopkeeper turned her away before she spoke. A man outside the saloon looked at her and walked past without a word. Even the people who passed on the street avoided her eyes. She was treated like she did not belong. By midday, she and her children sat under a tree outside town. The sun was hot, and the wind carried dust across the ground. The children were quiet now, waiting beside her. A lone rider approached on horseback. Elias Turner had just returned from work outside town. His clothes were covered in dust, and his horse moved slowly after a long ride. He noticed them as he neared the road. Most people would have continued past, but he stopped. Elias looked at the woman, then at the children. He did not ask questions at first. He simply studied the situation for a moment. Then he spoke. "You should not stay here." Nijoni nodded slightly, expecting him to leave like the others. Instead, Elias dismounted and looked toward his cabin in the distance. "Come with me," he said quietly. Elias Turner led them away from the edge of town without another word. Nijoni walked behind him with her children close to her side. She did not know if this man was helping them or simply taking them somewhere more private to send them away later. Still, she had no better choice. The path toward his cabin ran along dry grass and scattered stones. The sun was lowering now, and the wind had started to cool. The boy looked around often, as if expecting someone to appear and stop them. The girl stayed quiet, holding her mother's hand tightly. Elias did not speak much during the walk. He kept his eyes forward and checked the land around them more than once, as if he expected trouble to follow. When they reached the cabin, it stood alone near a line of trees. It was simple, built from rough wood, but it looked steady. A small pen held a horse nearby. Elias opened the door and stepped aside. Nijoni hesitated at the entrance. No one had welcomed her like this before. Not once since her journey began. "Inside," Elias said calmly. She entered slowly with her children. The room was plain. A table, a stove, and a few supplies on shelves. Nothing extra. Nothing wasted. Elias brought water first, then bread from a cloth sack. The children ate quickly, as if they were afraid the food might disappear. Nijoni watched them closely, then looked at Elias. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Elias rested his hands on the edge of the table. "Because no one else would," he said. That answer did not explain everything, but it was honest. Outside, the light faded further. Shadows stretched across the ground. The cabin felt quiet, but not completely safe. Elias stepped out for a moment to secure the horse and check the area. He paused near the trees, looking toward the road that led back to town. Two riders stood far off in the distance. They were not close enough to speak, but close enough to watch. Elias did not move. He already understood what their presence meant. Inside the cabin, Nijoni sat beside her children as they rested. She looked toward the door when Elias returned. "You will have trouble for this," she said softly. Elias nodded once. "Most good choices bring trouble," he replied. For a moment, neither of them spoke again. Outside, the wind moved through the trees, carrying the first signs that what had begun that day would not stay quiet for long. Morning came slow over Red Creek, but news traveled faster than sunlight. By the time the town bell rang, people were already talking about the Apache woman and her children staying at Elias Turner's cabin. Some called it foolish. Others called it dangerous. A few said it was wrong from the start. Elias stood outside his cabin checking the fence when he heard horses approaching. 3 men from town rode up together. The leader was Harold Mason, a cattle buyer who believed the land followed his rules more than the law. He stopped his horse without dismounting. "You brought them here," Harold said. Elias did not deny it. They needed help. Harold let out a short laugh. "You think kindness will protect you when trouble comes?" Elias looked at him steadily. "I think leaving children outside would bring more trouble than this ever will." One of the other men shifted in his saddle. "You do not understand what people will say," he added. "Town does not accept this." Elias replied without raising his voice. "I did not ask the town." That answer made Harold's expression harden. Inside the cabin, Najoni watched through a small window. Her children stayed close behind her. She could hear the tension outside even without seeing it clearly. Harold leaned forward slightly. "If you keep them here, you will be alone in this," he said. Elias stepped closer to the fence. "I was already alone in it before they arrived." A long silence followed. The men studied him, trying to decide if he would change his mind. When it became clear he would not, Harold finally turned his horse. "This will not end well for you," he warned. Then they rode back toward town. Najoni came outside after they left. She stood beside Elias and looked toward the road. "They will not accept us here," she said quietly. Elias watched the dust settle. "I know," he replied. She looked at him with uncertainty. "Then why risk it?" Elias finally turned toward the cabin. "Because they are already here," he said. "And I will not send them back into nothing." For the first time, Najoni did not argue. But somewhere in the distance, more riders were gathering. And this time, they were not coming to talk. By late afternoon, the air around Red Creek felt tense and still. People stayed inside their homes, watching through windows instead of walking the streets. Word had spread that Elias refused to send the Apache woman and her children away. Najoni kept her children close inside the cabin, but she could sense something building outside. Even the wind felt heavier, like it carried trouble with it. Elias stood near the front of the cabin, watching the road. He did not have to wait long. A larger group of riders appeared, moving slowly toward him. Harold Mason was with them again, but this time he was not speaking alone. Several townsmen had joined him, along with one man Elias recognized from the county office. They stopped at a distance. Harold spoke first. "This ends now," he said. "You bring them out, and this situation goes no further." Elias did not move from the porch. "They are not a situation," he replied. Murmurs passed through the group. The county man stepped forward. "You are creating disorder," he said. "This town cannot allow it." Elias looked at all of them. "Then maybe the problem is not them," he said. "Maybe it is what you already believe." The riders grew silent. Inside the cabin, Najoni held her children tighter. Elias knew what came next. He had seen it in towns before. Pressure would turn into force if he did not give in. Harold's voice lowered. "You still have a chance to fix this," he warned. Elias answered simply, "I am already where I need to be." The riders exchanged looks. None of them moved forward yet, but none of them left either. And that silence told Elias everything. The conflict was no longer about one family. It was about what kind of people this town chose to be. The standoff outside Elias Turner's cabin held for a long moment, with riders watching from the road and the cabin standing quiet behind him. No one spoke at first, as if each man was waiting for the other to break. Inside, Najoni kept her children close, listening to every sound. She knew this silence would not last. Harold Mason finally shifted in his saddle. "You are making a mistake that will cost you everything," he said. Elias stepped down from the porch and stood firm. "Then I will pay it," he replied, "but I will not send them away." The county man studied him for a moment, then slowly raised a hand. "Enough," he said to the others. "We leave this for now." Harold looked ready to argue, but something in the man's tone stopped him. One by one, the riders turned their horses and rode back toward town, leaving dust drifting behind them. When the road finally cleared, Najoni came outside with her children. She looked at Elias, unsure of what would come next. "They will return," she said quietly. Elias nodded. "Maybe," he answered, "but not to find you alone." For the first time, Najoni did not feel like she was being driven away. She felt like she had been given a place to stand. The sun set behind the hills as silence returned to the cabin. For Najoni and her children, it was the first night in a long time without fear pushing them forward. And for Elias, it was the first time he had chosen people over pressure from the town. But deep down, he knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning of what Red Creek would do next. If this story moved you, like the video and subscribe for more emotional Western tales like this. Comment below what you would have done in Elias's place. And share this story with someone who believes kindness still has power